Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It's another Sunday. It's 4 p.m. and that tells you that it's time for another episode of the 𝐀𝐝𝐦𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐨𝑧 Digest. My name is Ophelia and I'm going to be your host for today. So you're welcome. Today is also going to be a very enlightening episode because we are going to be talking about a subject that um, arguably a lot of people don't know about, or they might not even have heard about, or may not be that well informed about. Essentially, we're going to be talking about workmen's compensation. So, at the end of this episode, we're hoping that for those who may never have heard about it, you would get some new information that you can run with. And those who may have but do not know the ins and outs of it, this is an opportune moment for you to learn. So, if you know any practitioner who you think this would benefit, of course, all HR practitioners would benefit from this. Send them the link, share the link, share the link with them, and let them join. I'll be very grateful if you could drop in your comments, especially your questions, so that our resource person, our able resource person, would be able to address them, and then we'll have a holistic episode. Before I go in to introduce our guests for today, as always, I want to know, have you registered for the 𝐀𝐝𝐦𝐢𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐢𝐸 HR conference? We are just some few weeks away. It's happening on the 26th of September, and we're already in September. Today is the 1st, so it means we have 25 days to go. The countdown is on, people. Have you registered? Please, if you haven't registered, the information is right there on your screens. Please take note of the contact details, and please ensure you call 𝐀𝐝𝐴𝐷𝑎T consult and they would sort you out. It's happening 26th of September. It's going to be in Kumasi, Micklin Hotel in Kumasi. The day is a Thursday. It's a working day. So, if you're going, and I hope all of you are going, then please start working on your leave. People of Kumasi, we are hoping to see you in your numbers. So please, please, please take note of the numbers and get in touch with 𝐀𝐝𝐴𝐷𝑎T Consulting. We will see you on the 26th at Micklin Hotel. Now, we have a magazine, the 𝐀𝐝𝐴𝐷𝑎T HR Digest magazine, which was launched about some 2 months ago or so, and it's been out for a while now. Now we're going to come out with the next edition, but the question is, have you read the first edition? Because if you have read it, you would know there's a lot to expect. You have a lot of expectations. So please grab a copy. If you need a copy, drop it, and we'll drop the link to the magazine. It's free, by the way. It's very free. So we'll drop a link so that you can access it. If you need it, you can also call 𝐀𝐝𝐴𝐷𝑎T and they would also hook you up with that. But the most important bit, the part where you need to play a role in supporting us, is to let your management get wind of this juicy, effective, beautiful magazine and let them buy an advertisement slot. That is how we are able to bring you free copies. So please help us and help push this magazine into your various organizations. Let them come in and buy advertising slots so that we'll be able to continue funding this very informative, educative, free resource for you. Thank you so much. One more thing before I introduce my guests. As you know, 𝐀𝐝𝐴𝐷𝑎T, we are committed to personal development, especially of the HR professional. And so we have a training that is lined up for you, which will be beaming on your screens in a couple of seconds. It's a training particularly for persons or professionals interested in employment laws, especially on terminations. Termination, you would agree with me, can get quite tricky, So this training session or training segment is going to be facilitated by Jonathan Ajokwe Esquire, and he's going to be walking us through the ins and outs of what fair, unfair terminations are, how to go about certain things regarding terminations. And so if you're as a professional, even if you're not an HR professional, for as long as you're a person in management, this is for you. For as long as someone's job lies on you, line managers, HR practitioners, managers, CEOs, business owners. This is for you. So please share the information. If you are not, someone might be interested. Again, pick the information and do call, and we would sort you out to the registration. The registration details are down there, as you can see, and then payment confirms your registration. So pick up the details, note the cost, and then make the payment, and that confirms your registration. It's coming on at the 14th of September, which gives us 13 days away from the time. So you'd want to get working on that right away. With that out of the way, we move our attention on to our guest for today. He's in the person of Mr. Michael Osei Dixon. He's the head of Group Life, Health and Pensions at 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐻 Limited. He's packing with about 11 years of experience, and his key skills are underwriting, claims, and marketing. His professional achievements include membership of the Chartered Institute of Insurance in Ghana, and he's also a facilitator for the certificate program at the Ghana Insurance College. So as always, we have very seasoned guests. And on that note, I would want to welcome Michael. Welcome, Michael. And how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How about you too?
I'm very well. I'm very well.
Great,
I hope the
great,
weekend
great.
has been smooth and restful.
Yeah, it has. Especially today. Today is my little girl's birthday, so you can imagine.
Oh,
You can imagine the pressure on me. I need to buy everything for her.
oh, I know. She wants the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Please buy her an insurance policy.
You
Fix her.
see,
Yeah, that's the best you can get for her.
right.
Anyway,
It's always
welcome
great.
once
It's
again.
always
Thank
great.
you
All
so
right,
much
sure.
for making the time to
Yeah,
join us.
sure. It's
All
a pleasure
right.
to be here, actually.
Great. So let's just jump right into it because we have limited time. So before we get into anything, I like to drive understanding first to the audience for the sake of those who may never have heard it, or those, like I said earlier, who may have but are not very well informed. So let's start off with what workmen's compensation is and why it's important.
Okay, all right. So it sets a very good for our discussion today, and from the angle you are coming from, I'm tempted to believe that's where was also because if we talk about accidents, work-related accidents, everybody is looking at workmen's compensation. But before the workmen's compensation, there is the group life policy, and then there is the workmen's compensation policy, which I'm sure most of us what each of them does. So what my presentation will do today is to take us through what the group life policy is, what the workmen's compensation is, the difference between the two, and then how we can blend the two, because each of them complement each other. They all cover different angles, and also that's what the conversation is going to be about today. So at least we're able to cover end to end in terms of accident, illness, related issues, and then trying to give employees the peace of mind to work.
Great. Okay,
So
so
if you
take it
may
away.
permit me, great. So I see my screen, or you can slide.
Um,
Are you able to
I
see my
guess.
slide from here?
Yes,
Okay,
I
great.
can see it now.
You have it. Nice one.
Yes.
So before, I just want us to have this picture in mind. We'll come back to it and then explain what it does. I know everybody remembers the Humpty Dumpty story. He fell and then broke. So at that time, if there was an insurance company, this is how the claim department were going to treat that case. So we'll look at, just have a mental picture in your mind. We'll come back and then explain what this is in terms of insurance, in terms of workmen's compensation, and in terms of group life. So my name is Michael Osei Dixon, like you rightly mentioned, from 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 We'll look at what 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬 insurance brokers are, what we do, why 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬 insurance brokers, why we think we should do business with us. We look at the benefits of group life insurance policies. We look at the extensions of group life, how you can extend the policy to suit your needs. We look at the scope of workmen's compensation. We normally call it WC from where we come from. So how workmen's compensation or WC is computed, because if there's a claim and it goes to the labor office and computation is done and you are not too sure how the computation is done, either you might be shortchanged or you might not be paying the right claim. So we look at how the computation is done. So at least we can interpret how the computation is done when the labor office submits these computations to us. And then we'll look at the difference between the group life and then the WC, I mean the workmen's compensation. Then we look at questions and answers. If there are any questions, you can just drop them in whilst we answer them. All right, so 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐻 Insurance Brokers, let's do a little bit about us. Licensed in 1990, we actually became a market leader right after 2 years, and we've been leading the market since then till now. We are in Ghana, Sierra Leone, we are in Liberia, and then this year, the new kid on the block, Cote d'Ivoire, also joined. 𝐀𝐝𝐻 also partners other global insurance brokers. So the other brokers across the world we do business with. This helps us know what the market is turning out to be. We are able to understand what other markets are doing, and then we introduce same into our market. So this presentation, everything I say about 𝐀𝐝𝐻, everything we do, like we always say, is absolutely free. We don't charge for our services. So everything I say going forward, I'll come back and then reiterate that our services are entirely free. They are you don't pay anything for our services. So we'll come back to this slide and then you understand why our services are free. So this is our mission and our vision. The vision basically is to remain the leading insurance broker in Ghana. And we've done this from the time the company was set up till now. We've been the leading insurance broker. And how have you been able to do this? By our mission. We go the extra mile, to provide solutions. We are here to provide solutions for you. Like I said, our services are extremely free. We provide solutions for you to provide a peace of mind in terms of all your insurance needs. Insurance, like they say, is highly technical. So sometimes you need a technical person to break it down and then explain to you what you are getting yourself into, and then provide that solution to meet your need. So we have branches, we have other subsidiaries outside Ghana. So basically we are a multinational. So we have branches in Sunyani, Takwa, Takrady, Kumasi, Accra, Tema, and then Tamale. We have other subsidiaries in Liberia, we are in Sierra Leone, and then Ivory Coast this year. Why 𝐀𝐝𝐻? Like we always say, why 𝐀𝐝𝐻? We've been the market leader all these years. So then it tells you that there's something right we are actually doing. We're actually getting it right. We've been getting it right over the period, and then we are getting it right. So we've been the market leader all these years. We always assure you of first-class service. Our services are always top-notch. I'll come to our experience later. Our experience in the industry, I'll come to that. And then partnership, in terms of partnership, we don't see you as a client. Basically, we don't see you as a client. What we see you as a partner. We partner with you. Like I said, our services are free. So this is the reason why I was telling you our services are free. We partner with you. We're able to understand your missions. We're able to understand your visions. We're able to understand where you want to move your company from A to Z, and then we're able to guide you through. So we partner with you. We hold your hands all the way, and then we're able to make sure all your needs, all your insurance solutions are provided to you with experience. I will just come to experience in my next slide. All right, so like my other team members will say, working. What is in for? You've been speaking 𝐀𝐝𝐻. What have you done? Why 𝐀𝐝𝐻? So yesterday, we actually awarded all these awards. We basically swept the awards ceremony, corporate social responsibility company for the year 2023, product development company for the year 2023, reinsurance broker of the year 2023, broker of the year life business, and then broker of the year non-life business. So it tells you we've been doing something right. So these are all the awards we were able to receive yesterday, and then tells you we're actually in a good place to provide solutions for you that makes extra sense, that makes sense to you and your business. So what is our business basically? So we provide comfort. I said insurance, like they say, is highly technical. So we provide comfort and then convenience. So you read all the policy wordings. The policy will say sum assured. The policy says claims. You need to understand what the sum assured is. You need to understand, because insurance, like they say, it's actually like how the Bible operates. Do this, you get that. Do this, you get that. So we're able to break it down to tell you, okay, these are the terms, these are the conditions, these are what you need to do to qualify for a claim. These are all that you need to also put into place. So we're able to demystify if that's for want of a better word. We're able to demystify the policy details, the policy wording, to provide that comfort and convenience. Well, at least you're able to tell what kind of insurance products you are signing yourself in, and then what the benefits are in terms of claims, what you need to do to have a smooth transition from paying premiums and then applying for the claim if the event happens. So we provide the peace of mind. So it gives you actually the peace of mind to go about your normal businesses, knowing that in the event of claim where you are not actually in the right position to take the right decisions, in the event of claims, 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬 can come up. We come in to help you and then sort out all your issues for you. So that peace of mind is actually there. All your insurance needs are covered. And then for swift management of clients' claims. So what we actually also do, like I always tell my clients when I meet them, we actually have a whole unit for claims. So we're able to guide you through the process. There are times when others also come in and say, well, I'm not with 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬, but then I have a problem with my claim. We're able to advise and then guide you through the process in making your claim. So I'll get into more details with that. All right, so these are the services, the sectors we provide our services. I believe everybody on the call will find themselves in one or two of these services. So in aviation, in manufacturing, in education, energy, finance, health, hospitality, in all of these sectors, 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬 is here for you. We are here to advise. And again, our services are free. All right, so let's zoom right into what we are actually supposed to do for today. So we are looking at group life, and then we are looking at workmen's compensation as well. We're able to want to know what the difference are, and then if you are an insurance practitioner, what form of insurance will be good for your employees. Because I believe every HR practitioner is more interested in the needs of employees actually, or the welfare of employees. So basically for the group life policy, normally is taken by the employer. So the employer is actually the owner of this policy. So the employer owns this policy, takes this policy, and then the beneficiaries are the employees. So the group life policy covers for death, it covers for accidental death as well. It covers for total permanent disability. It covers for temporary disability. It covers for medical expense and then critical illness, or we say dread disease. There are times when we're able to embed workmen's compensation also into. So death, what death does is if any member is involved in anything, natural death, accidental death, the sum assured is paid. So if I say sum assured, because life insurance or life basically cannot be valued. Just as assuming you have your car, you can say, okay, my car costs X amount or Y amount. For life, you can't value. So what normally the group life does is we peg your sum assured to your earnings, or we peg your sum assured to your salary. So if you have a monthly salary of 1,000, and then your policy is doing a one-time annual salary, your sum assured is deemed to be 12,000. So that's what your sum assured is. So if a member touchwood should die, the policy comes in and pays the annual salary to the employee. So it could be natural, it could be accidental. And then there's total permanent disability, which the policy also covers. So under the total permanent disability, so there could be an accident, it could be domestic, it could be road traffic, there's an accident, but you didn't die, but you were rendered into a vegetative state, like my former boss will always say. So you are not able to work anymore. Once the doctor pronounces you as permanently disabled, full sum assured or 100% of your sum assured is paid. So your annual salary will be paid to you if the policy is a one-time policy. Then temporary disability. So there's an accident, fine, you can come back, but then you stayed away from work for a number of days. So what this also does is the policy pays you for the number of days you stayed away from work. So the calculation is just quite simple. So we look at the number of days you stayed away from work, we divide by 365 and then multiply by your sum assured. So if you stayed away from work for say 10 days, 10 days divided by 365, and then we multiply that by your annual salary. If your annual salary is 12,000, like you mentioned, then that is your claim. So it pays you the number of days you actually stayed away from work. And then medical expense also is more of a rider onto the temporary disability. So if there's an accident and the person stayed away from work for say 10 days, the medical bills associated with 10% of them will be paid to you as an extra benefit if you have this group life policy on the temporary disability. So if the temporary disability assuming paid you say 5,000, then there's an extra 10% of your sum assured that you're able to get afterwards in terms of medical expense. So the 10% is actually capped. So if your sum assured is 10,000, 10% of it is 1,000. So you have a 1,000 window to spend within for any accident. It could be domestic. So for group life, like I'm saying, it could be domestic, it could be on site, it could be wherever, it could be on leave, and then you are still covered. So it pays 10% of your medical expense. And then dread disease, initially when I joined the industry, we could go a whole year without paying any of these dread disease or critical illness like we normally call it. But some way, somehow, it keeps on catching up on all of us. And then it looks like last year, the highest driver of most of the life claims were dread disease or critical illness. So this also comes in and pays 50% of your sum assured. So in terms of critical illness, it covers stroke, it covers paraplegia, it covers Alzheimer's disease, it covers major burns, it covers end-stage kidney problems. There are a number of them, about 14 of them, which I will share with you as the presentation goes by. So if any member is diagnosed of any of these illness, 50% of the sum assured is paid. So under group life, we are not looking at work or non-work. Group life works within two spaces. So your same group life policy, we could embed it with workmen's compensation. The reason why I've put an asterisk in there is we'll come back and then see the full scope of workmen's compensation. So group life in general covers death, temporary disability, so death, accident, and then medical expense, and then dread disease. Normally, that's what group life actually covers. So I'm sure if you have your group life policy and then you look at the policy document, especially the last page, you're able to tell the benefit schedule, you're able to tell what the percentages you are getting, and then if it's a one time, you're able to tell. If it's two time, you're also able to tell. So this is how the group life space actually works. So this is the scope, and then for the group life, you can always extend it to cover other benefits. So natural, like we explained, permanent disability, it covers temporary disability, medical expense. Like I said, it's all by default, it's always around 10%, but you can always extend it to about 20%, 15%. I know a client that is trying to do 30%, which you are trying to negotiate with the insurer to up it to 30%. So, and then it covers workmen's compensation, it covers critical illness. Like I said, 50% of the sum assured will be given. So this is like the scope of group life. And then again, for this same scope, we can extend the policy to cover other legs. We can bring in other legs for the group life policy to cover. So we can extend it to cover to and from work. If we get to the workmen's compensation, I will explain what the to and from work means, and then we could even extend it for it to cover your spouse. It could extend for it to cover a coffin benefit. So if a member should die, the policy pays the death benefits, and then it pays a bit of coffin as well. Nobody wants this child death benefit, but we can also extend it to cover children, and also extend it to cover parent as well. So depending on your policy, depending on how the policy is run, we're able to extend it to cover all these benefits. And like I said, in 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢, we look at what you have. You call me in, I look at what you have, then we're able to sit and then say, okay, depending on the people you work with, or depending on your staff and their average age and all of that, we're able to tell, let's add parents in there. Because if you're dealing with a client where the average age is around 50 years, technically you don't need a death of parent cover, because it is assumed at that point most of their parents are probably no more. So we look at the average age, then we're able to advise you as to which of these benefits. But the other benefits we can also add. So sometimes we're able to also negotiate with the insurer and then add aerobics. There are times when we've added aerobics. There are times when we've added a monthly section with a doctor. Every month the doctor comes in to share advice on maybe healthy life, healthy style of living, and all of that. So these are things we normally do for you, and these are the benefits you get if you have 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐬 on board. Because what we normally do, because we have a bigger number of clients, what we do is we're able to tell what all the other clients are covering, and then we advise the insurance, and then tell you what kind of benefits you also need to make your policy more competitive. So this is the group life, and then it can be extended to cover all the other ones. So now, almighty workmen's compensation, like we always say, anytime you talk about benefits, the first thing HR practitioners actually think about is workmen's compensation, because of the act. And that for for the group life, there's no act actually backing it, or there's no law backing group life. But anytime you hear of accident, anytime you hear of injury, the first thing that crosses anybody's minds is the act, or the Workmen's Compensations Act. So the almighty Workmen's Compensation, let's look at what it does. So once you are Ghanaian and then you are in Ghana, your domicile or the range should be, or the geographical location should be in Ghana. The Act 187 actually covers you in, so for public employees, for private employees as well are covered. The only people that are exempted from this act are armed forces, which they have a specialized arrangement in their field. So in terms of workmen's compensation, anytime we talk about workmen's compensation, like I said, people think it's just accident and then that's it. But these are the benefits under workmen's compensation. So the employer's liability becomes, so if the employer is liable, so example, let me just give an example. So if you are in the office, probably you're working with a laptop. I had this case about 2 years ago. The lady says she was working with a laptop and then the laptop blew up into his face. I wonder how it happened, but it actually happened. So in that space, you are working and then you get injured in the process. The policy says, the Workmen's Compensation Act says, the employer is liable. You know, workmen's compensation is more of a strict liability. So if the event happens, employer is liable. It is not at the point, so that lady who was typing, the employer cannot say, oh, you're typing too fast or you're typing too slow. For workmen's compensation, it is not a time where you're able to tell clients or you tell your people it's your fault. The accident happened because of your fault, because it's your fault. If the accident happens, the employer is liable. Nobody's looking at who is at fault or who is not at fault. So it covers for accidents, it covers for death. So if a member is involved in an accident whilst in the course of its employment, it covers. If the member dies, it also covers. And one thing employees, or one thing we basically miss is workmen's compensation also covers medical expense as well. So all the medical bills, so the person is involved in an accident, all the medical bills are also covered. So under Section 4, it talks about medical expense, and then it is open-ended. This is where sometimes when I read the act, I become a bit scared for employers. And the way you talk to other HR practitioners and ask them, do you have a workmen's compensation? Or they say, oh, well, we don't have it. We will manage it case by case. And this case by case is just a matter of time. There will be a case that might overcome you, because I've seen workmen's compensations that are way more than 200,000, and you see them, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, how is the employer going to pay? So for workmen's compensation, nobody will actually chase you with a whip and say, you need it, go and get it. But as soon as the event happens, the employer is liable. As soon as the event happens. And you know, one thing about the Act too, the Act also states you should be in that position to do so. Section 4 covers all medical expenses. So if the member is involved in an accident, road traffic accident, all the medical expense, in drugs, the POP, all the accessories are in there. So the employer becomes liable to pay. And then total incapacity. So if there's an accident and the member is rendered permanently disabled, it also pays. The scary part is under Section 3, the fatal accident, under Section 3, it pays 8 years of the person's salary. 8 years of the person's salary. So if your monthly salary is 1,000 cedis, the employer is liable to pay 8 years of that person. So you're paying 1,000 cedis times 96. That's how scary the act is. The act is very open, and normally they say the act was biased to employees, but well, you never know. So the Section 4 talks about medical expense. Section 5 talks about permanent disability. So if the member is disabled permanently too, 8 years of the person's monthly salary is paid. It could be partial. There was an accident, the person will recover eventually. So the person comes back after a number of days. So what they do is they go to labor computes the premium, labor computes the amount you're supposed to pay. And then it comes back to the employer for the employer to pay. And then it pays for temporary disability too. So same, there's an accident, you come back from, normally you go to the labor office, it is computed, and then the percentage of disfigurement and then the percentage of incapacity is actually given. From this slide, I will show you how the computation is done. So at least when it comes, you'll be able to appreciate it much more. And then it covers temporary disability. Section 7 covers temporary incapacity. Section 8 covers disfigurement injury. So if there's an injury that leaves a mark, so assuming there's an accident on you hit your head against something, and then there's a mark on your face. That's what we normally call disfigurement. So there's a percentage for the disfigurement, and then there's a percentage for the incapacitation. So normally, either they are using this disfigurement or incapacitation, or adding both, and then an award will be given, and then employer it's liable. Like I said, the workmen's compensation is a strict liability. It doesn't look at faults or the employee didn't perform his or her duty. That's why he was involved in an accident. An occupational illness, actually. So assuming the person works in a factory, produce, and then maybe as a result of inhalation of the smoke over time, the person gets ill as a result of that. It comes in to pay. But the only thing is for workmen's compensation, it should be work related. So if you're on leave and something happens in the house, workmen's compensation, in fact, you're not covered. We don't look at workmen's compensation at all, irrespective of the extent of the injury. So for a liability to happen, it says if the act was done by the employee for the purpose of and in the connection of the employer's trade or business. So if anything you are doing, if it is in connection with the employer's trade or business, employer is liable. Nobody is going to ask why did you go here, why did you go there, and especially we salespeople, like you're moving around, you're moving to one client to the other, and then there's an accident on the road. I don't think the employer will say, why were you going here? Because once you were in that emotion, it was in the interest of the employer. So that's what we look at. So once it was in the interest, whatever you are doing, it was in the interest of the employer and the trade of his or her business. The employer is actually liable to actually pay. So this is how the computation is done. It's actually straightforward. So sometimes I don't know why people get it wrong and then they don't try to. So it's just straightforward. So this is just like this is an example of a workman's compensation I worked on some time ago. I've shaded the employee out. It's just for presentation purposes actually. So there's a ceiling. The HEO salary. Normally, if there's an accident, they peg the sum assured to the HEO salary. So it could be that your salary is above. If it's above, they will peg it to the HEO salary and then bring it to the HEO salary. Or if it is below the HEO salary, then they use your salary as it is. So the HEO salary is a ceiling, and the labor office brings it out, I think, every now and then. Those days it used to be on an annual basis, but now I'm sure because of economic conditions, they keep on revising. So the current HEO salary is 25,964. So this is what will be used in the computation. So normally when the computation is being done by the labor office, it is the HEO salary divided by 12, which gives you the monthly salary of the higher executive officer's salary. And then the percentage of incapacitation or disfigurement. The previous slide, I explained what the percentage is. So a medical doctor will attend to you, will assess you, find out the extent of your injury, and award the percentage. So that percentage will be multiplied to the HEO salary. And then it's multiplied by 96, which is 8 years. So 10% of your 8 years salary is going to be paid to you. So the 25,964, the 25,964 is the HEO salary. There are times when you receive a computation and then it's lower. If it is lower, then they're just telling you that the person's salary was lower. If it is up to the HEO salary, either the person was being paid at the level of the HEO salary or being paid higher than the HEO salary. It's just for equity purposes. That's why the HEO salary is more like a ceiling, the ceiling. But then in all this would be done. So if there's an accident, the person goes to the labor office does all this computation. It comes to the employer to pay. And the employer has within 3 months to pay. As to whether you have money or you don't have money, or you've made provisions for it, or if you've not made provisions for it, you are supposed to pay. So after 3 months, if you don't pay, then that is when you become liable. That is when the employee can actually take you on, and then you could even be awarded the employee could even be awarded more. So then the penalty will be paid. So why were you not able to pay within that 3 months? Then you would now go and explain to the court why you're not able to pay within that period. And then if the court also has any other story to tell you, they will normally tell you. But sometimes these matters, when it gets to court, judges are always biased when it comes to employee issues, and they will always judge in favor of the employee. And then there are times when you could even pay more than this amount that is actually stated. So workmen's compensation actually, because it's guided by the act, we all make sure we fall within what the act does. My previous slides, I mentioned to and from work. So there are times when the act itself talks about to and from work, but what it does is you are only covered if you are in an employee bus. And nowadays, how many employers have buses for employees to transport them from work to home? That's what the act says. But the gap in there is nowadays we all use our personal cars, or fine, you could have a company car, but most of the people here use either you are using a company car, or you are using your personal car, or you are going by public transport. So we look at this, and then we are able to also tell the insurer to add an extension. We are not actually extending the law, but we are adding another line of item or another line of benefits to cushion this law. Okay, so our focus is not to extend the law, which we cannot because we are not an act of parliament actually. So we look for another benefit in between that will take care of those who are within traveling from home to work. So there's a benefit we normally call to and from work. So it covers you when you are going to work and then when you are coming from work. So if the accident happens, it still goes to labor. Labor does the computation. And then once the insurer accepts liability for to and from work, if the accident happens to when you are going to work or when you are from work, the policy will normally come in to pay. So in all of this, we normally would advise employers that workmen's compensation, the act is actually very open. I know a couple of insurers who have also started trying to lobby for the act to be closed a little bit because the liability scope is so wide such that you might be paying claims that you've not budgeted for. I've seen a claim of over 900,000 being paid under workmen's compensation, and the very minute I see these things, my heart starts bleeding for the employer. So in trying to limit all of this your liabilities, what do you do normally do under this case is you try to shift that liability to the insurer. So it helps you save, it helps you budget, because what we normally do is we will provide a premium for you to pay. Once you pay the premium, you've covered your liabilities under workmen's compensation. So you can decide to say, normally I know that most of the employers who say we'll manage it case by case, they are actually not really privy to how extent or how expansive the act is. Because if you're going to pay all medical bills, aside the medical bills, you are compensating the client for the injury as well. So if you look at all this computation and then there's a premium of say 50,000, even 50,000 as premium, and you are paying a premium of say 50,000 to cover you for all these liabilities. Many a times the employees are not really, some of them might not really know how far the act goes. So in our settings to Femenyame is in there a lot. So because they are not really, once they're able to tell that this covers, then there's an issue for you. So under group life, the coverage is 24 hours. 24 hours. So it covers you whilst you're at work, whilst you're off work, whilst you're off for lunch. It covers you end to end. And then whilst you're on vacation, it covers. The group life also it's a policy on its own that can accommodate the workmen's compensation as well. So you can have the group life policy and then add the workmen's compensation, that whole act or that whole benefits we talked about, add all of that onto your group life policy. So you could have a group life policy without WC. Fine. What the interpretation we are giving is, what you are saying is, if you are involved in an accident, it is your sum assured we use. So if your sum assured is not that big, and normally workmen's compensation pays more as compared to group life. When I'm done, I'll share a story with you, and then you're able to tell how deep this group life and the workmen's compensation normally goes. And then the group life actually is owned by the employer. So the employer owns the policy. So if anybody joins, the person is added. If somebody leaves, the person is taken off and a credit will be given for if anybody wants to join, then they join. But under the group life, under the workmen's compensation, it covers work-related injuries, full stop. So if you're home on a Sunday and you're watching your football and the event happens, there's an accident, you are not covered. And then, like I said, workmen's compensation is also a strict liability. So if the event happens, employer is liable. We don't ask for who was at fault once it happens, or we don't ask who asked you to go and do this. So especially you are doing some. So let me just give an example that happened some time ago. So the company organized a game somewhere, and then this guy joined. I believe in his younger days he used to play football just like I do, and he was involved in an injury. So let's say a hamstring injury, which was quite serious. His leg actually, the bone broke into two actually. So he was permanently disabled. So he couldn't. So when he applied for he asked his employers to apply under WC. They told him, "Oh well, it's your fault. Nobody asked you. It's a football game we organized. Nobody asked you to come and play. You came to play yourself, knowing that football is injury prone, and you also involved. Once you involved yourself, because the employer was trying to shift the liability, the employer told the employee that nobody asked you. So when he called me and told me this is the circumstances he find himself, I don't know. Well, I spoke to the employer, and then we were able to get a compensation for the person, because and it had to go through labor. If he had to go through labor, I believe the compensation would have paid. But I explained the act to them. I made them understand that the person went there not on his own, because the company organized it. He went there because of the company. So it was because of work, and then he got himself. So a benefit was supposed to be paid. But under group life and under the workmen's compensation, if you deliberately, I know people who tell me, a friend of mine was entering into, I think he's in the States or so. He says he was entering into the American Army. And what he would do is he'll enter small, and then after like some 3, 4, 5 years, he'll make sure he gets himself injured, and then he'll be out, and they'll pay him till he dies. And I'm saying, hey, what you want to do there is very diabolical. But if it's self-inflicted injury, the policy does not actually cover. The policy does not cover. So, the good thing about this is group life and workmen's compensation are more of your right hand and your left hand. Sometimes your right hand will buff the left one, the left one will buff the right one, like they normally say in our local parlance. Each of them complement each other. So depending on your company structure, depending on what you want to do, each of them complement each other. So where the group life will go, but will be inadequate, the workmen's compensation will cover full. So if it is work related, the group life can cover, but then the compensation under the group life might not be adequate. The workmen's compensation is quite okay. And then in terms of when you are in the house, workmen's compensation will not be covered. You get it. Workmen's compensation will not be covered if the person is on leave, the person is on vacation. Some other parts of the world, when they go on leave, they basically go on vacation. But it looks like here we don't do that. So if you're on vacation, traveled, relaxing yourself, and the accident happens, it is the group life also comes in, because at that point the workmen's compensation will not be covered. So it's prudent to have both. And what I do in 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢, all we do as 𝐀𝐝𝐻 is, let me see the type of policy you have. Just let me know if you are doing workmen's compensation. We can have workmen's compensation and then fashion out a group life policy and infuse the workmen's compensation into your group life for you. Then it becomes an end-to-end cover. Then the employees know that, oh, well, if I'm home, I'm covered. If I'm in the office, I'm also covered. It actually boosts the morale of employees if they know end-to-end I'm covered. Because if you are giving off your best, you give off your best because you have a solid backing, which if there's any form of event, you're covered. But if you just do say you are doing WC, fine, workmen's compensation is fine. But if they are off work, that's when they are not covered. So you can have a workmen's compensation. Just give me a call. I'll look at how the workmen's compensation is fashioned out. We will infuse it into a group life. Or you could have a group life policy as a standalone. what happens is just talk to me. I'll see your group life policy. We'll be able to look at your group life policy, infuse the workmen's compensation into it, look at the group life policy again, and then there are other complementary benefits which we can add. So example is having a doctor to speak to employees once every month. That will not be your cost. If you have a good policy, just speak to me. I know how to maneuver. Like we say, our experience over the market is top notch. We are looking at how our customers are, I won't say customers, we're looking at how our partners are able to achieve their aims and their objectives in the long run, because we want to partner with you. We want to grow your business together. Speak to us. We have a team, a dedicated team. Actually, it's actually a team who will come in to do an audit. We normally call it an insurance audit. We come in and we do an insurance audit. We're able to tell you your policy covers this to this to that. This policy you're having covers this end. There's a gap here. Let's find another policy that will cover it. Or you could have two or three or four insurance policies covering the same thing, and it tells you are paying premium and paying premiums that might not really help you in the long run. So speak to 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬. We are here for you. We are here to do business with you. And again, our policies or our advice or our services are free, absolutely free. We don't charge you a dime. You can call me. I think after the CDAT program, a couple of HR practitioners have called me to look at how their policies work, and we've advised them, and then it's yielding results for them. So I'll actually end my presentation here. In 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐻, like we say, expertise, expertise. And then because once you are with us, we give you the expert advice. We tell you how the road looks like when you are, so assuming you are going to Kumasi, we're able to advise you. If you get to 𝐀𝐝𝐻, go this way, go that way, go that way. In fact, if you are going, use a 4-wheel drive or use a 2-wheel drive. That's what we are here to do. We partner with you and then make sure your business is a success. So this will be the end of my presentation. Just if I could have your questions, I can address all your questions. So the most important part of our journey is you. We haven't done this. We've been in the industry for over 30 years, and our journey has been complete with you. To me, my name is Michael Dixon. My number is down there. Call me anytime, any day, because my job schedule starts from Monday to Sunday. So between Monday and Sunday, you can call me on any insurance related issue, any insurance related issue. I'll be able to come in and then solve it. So today we did workmen's compensation, we did group life. I'm sure maybe the subsequent times I'll come back to explain to you how health insurance also works, how group funeral also works, and all your other insurances. So I'm here for you. If you have any questions, let's keep the questions coming whilst I address all of them. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. That was an excellent presentation. And yeah, you can keep the number on the screen for anyone who might want to note that. Before I get into it, I have Elizabeth from Ashoman. Okay. And we have Zachary Salamat. Hello, Zachary. Zachary wants to know how long does it, I think what she wants to say is how long does it take for an employer to process the workman compensation?
Okay, so because normally that goes through the labor office. So when the event happens, you speak to the labor. Let's just give ourselves, give or take, in a month. Once the person has recovered fully in a month, you should be able to get that done.
Okay, so let me sort of try to break it down. So an incident happens. Okay. Immediately, they definitely wouldn't be able to contact 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐻. So then it means clearly the person will self-fund, or the company would self-fund.
Yes.
And then after
yes.
the treatment and all of that, then would come and do the claim and processing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's a first assessment. So if the accident happens, there's a first assessment, there's a labor sheet 1, there's a labor sheet 2, and then there's a computation sheet. So what I shared with you was a computation sheet. So there will be a first assessment by a doctor, there will be a second assessment. So the first is when the accident happened, and then the second is when the person actually got healed finally, or got onto his feet. So they were able to tell the gap and then the extent of injury. Then the computation sheet will be done eventually. But the labor office has their doctors to do all these assessments for you. But you can also speak to me. We also have some of their
So you can go to any facility at all, right? It
Any
depends on when
facility,
the
any facility. Yes.
incidents happen.
Sometimes it
So I
depends on
actually had
where
a
the accident happened. Yeah.
so I actually had a question. Your presentation sort of cleared up all my questions. I had a to and from question,
Okay.
and I also had okay. So the 𝐀𝐿𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢 you addressed that we can't go beyond the. So if you are taking a certain kind of salary that puts you naturally be above the 𝐻EO, it brings you down to the cap, and if you're
Exactly.
taking
It's a
below,
ceiling. Yeah.
puts you within the cap. Okay, so that's
Exactly. Yeah.
sorted. So to and fro is also sorted. And then I was going to ask about default application, or is it by subscription? You also answered that so clearly. Whether you've taken up an insurance or not, as an employer,
Mhm.
if something happens, you're liable.
That's correct.
People, I hope the employers here and the business owners, I hope we have taken note of that. Whether you have
Yes.
subscribed intentionally, bought a policy or not, if an injury happens to an employee, you are liable by law. You also address the child limit, so I don't have to. So basically, okay, maybe one thing I do want to know, you did say 100% for the payout. I want to know the 100%, is it really 100%? Are
Oh
we
yeah, it
going
is.
to, when it's time for claim, they will say, "Oh yeah, you pay you earn 1,000 cedis a month times 8 years, the 96, and you have to pay 96,000. The person is expecting 96,000. Pay your explanation, and then now you come and say tax and admin fees and all of that. Is it really 100%, or there's some hidden what's it called processing fees?
Okay, so it is really 100% like you are saying. So we don't there are no hidden charges in between. Like insurance claims are tax free actually. So there are no tax in between. But what will happen
Right.
is there's a percentage you would have to pay as an employer, but then that is not uh, part of. So the employer would need to pay a percentage of that to the labor office. That is not going to be deducted from your compensation. I don't know if you get it.
Okay.
For admin, so
Okay.
for the labor office going through his or her administrative work, you need to pay them an amount. I think it's about
Okay.
3% or 2% in between. But then the full compensation will be given to you. You see, this is
Go
where
to you.
normally I tell my clients, you need somebody who understands this space, because
Right.
assuming you go by yourself and the labor office compete, there are times when I've seen a lot of computation sheets that have mistakes. Actually, let me just be frank. It wasn't
Mm,
computed well. So
well.
instead of using the 𝐻EO salary, they are using a different figure.
Mm,
There are times when the figures are not actually right. So if
right.
you go in there like that and then you go by yourself, sometimes you just be going in blind. So this is where you need somebody who understands this space. This is where you need 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬. And if you need a broker, your sure bet is the biggest broker on the continent. If I should, the biggest broker in Ghana. So to advise and let you know this claim is right, this claim is not right. Do this, do that to file for a claim. So just we are
Okay.
just a call away. We are just a call away from.
Okay. All right. So Sydney Nee says, if your company doesn't work on weekends, but due to your workload, you go to the office on weekends, what happens if there's an accident on your way? Can you apply for WC or workmen's compensation?
So if it has to and from, the workman's compensation, the act itself doesn't cover the to and from. You get it? You
Okay.
can only do
Okay.
to and from if you have the group life also in place.
Fee.
Because with the
Right.
workman's compensation, the act itself, you cannot extend the act as an employer, or
Right.
you get it. At your
Okay.
end, you can't extend it. So if the group life has to and from, so normally we add the to and from to the group life and infuse a WC in there. So if the
Mm.
person is going to work, that is where the to and from will work. So if you have a workman's compensation, it doesn't mean you have to and from. You only have to and from if you are in the company bus.
Oh, okay. So,
Exactly.
okay, that is good. You are clarifying that. We have some few minutes back. I mean, I'll just want to reiterate just to drive the understanding. So, essentially, correct me if I go wrong somewhere, but essentially, what you're saying is workmen's compensation as an employer is by default. Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, there are certain bits that are not captured by the Workmen Compensation Act, one of which is cover for to and from work. So that
That's
if you
correct.
are off the company premises on your way from work, or you are headed to work, but you're not on the company premises, and you suffer an accident or whatever injury, the company by Workmen's Compensation is not liable.
No.
However, if they happen to have bought into a group life policy where you infuse a to and fro cover, then
Yes.
you are covered as the employee. Am I
That's correct.
correct?
That's correct.
All
That's
right.
correct.
Sydney, I hope that answers your question. Joseph Owusu Banahene, does this act apply to public workers, especially public health services?
Yeah, it
Oh
does.
my
So
God.
public, private. The only people who are not covered are the military. They
Yes.
have a
Oh,
separate thing for them. So
okay.
yeah.
All right.
So private.
Is the Okay, Elizabeth Asari wants, is the HEO company specific or state determined?
It's determined by the labor office actually. So state
The labor
determined.
office.
Yeah.
Okay, but it
So it's the
still has a
same
cap.
across. Yes, yes. So
It still has a
those
cap
days
of
it used to be done every year, but now it looks like every quarter or every 3 or 4 months you see the
mm,
computation being changed. So it is
inflation
by
is
the labor
rising a
office.
bit, so
Ah, you
it
see?
needs
Yeah.
at least I'm happy about that. At least they're doing never mind. Zachary Salamat, does the percentage let me take my does the percentage the doctors gave have anything to do with the compensation?
Yes,
Do
yes.
you
So the
understand the question?
percentage yes, so the percentage given will influence the compensation. So the
Okay.
act, there's a schedule behind the act which says probably loss of arm is X%, loss of finger is Y%. So
Okay.
the higher your percentage,
Injuries.
the higher your compensation normally will become. So the
Okay.
example I gave was the person was given 10%. So assuming the claim was around 20,000. So assuming this 10% was say 50%, would have gone up. So the
Right.
higher the percentage, the higher. But then it all depends on the type of injury and then the circumstances.
So is there a guide for the medical practitioners to give a percentage like
That has that has been my problem all these years. You know, it is in the act, but normally
mm,
the doctors, they face value, they look at you and they say, let me give you that, let me give you that, let me give you that. But the act has there's a schedule behind the act which gives us a guide. So loss
mm,
of one phalange is I think about 5% or so. Loss of two phalanges is I think that's 7 or 10%. So there's a guide behind it. You get, but
right.
normally the doctors, well, that's what sometimes I normally would want the insurers to actually champion, educate the doctors on these are the guides. So when the act comes in front of you, you're able to tell, or if the person comes in front of you, you're able to tell, I'll give this person this percentage or that percentage or that percentage. But then the act has a guide. So
I suppose that the individual too, it behoves on you to also get yourself out of ignorance and also learn about this, because so that when they apportion the raw percentage, you can also speak up. Because
exactly.
if you don't know
Yeah,
and they give you
exactly.
anyhow, you
Yeah.
just take it. But if you know
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
able to challenge them and they'll sit up, I think. Okay, good question, Salamat. In fact, good question from all of you who have asked. This is how I like it. It's good when you bring in the questions and we are all able to learn. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. All
So
too
get yourself
soon.
cake insurance broker. So
Yes.
just
So please,
just
you
have
see,
cake in
this
your
is
corner. You're sorted.
free. I okay. So this one, I know people. And there are a lot of misconceptions and what's
Mhm.
the word when companies say they are free, but a number of people have come to testify actually about 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬 services that they actually are
Yeah.
free. And when you
Yeah.
call them to consult, when you call them to ask for advice, of course, that's the same as consulting. Whatever it is, when they are helping you through the process, they actually do not charge you anything. I think the charge goes to the employer, right?
No, it's actually the insurance companies actually pay us. So
That's not our business. Our business is that it's free, right? I believe I'm
yeah, the
speaking
insurance
for
companies
everybody.
pays they
So
pay us, so you
yes,
don't have a problem.
right. So do reach out to 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬𝐢. It's always good to follow who knows road. So 𝐀𝐝𝐬𝐬
Exactly.
has built that reputation over the time, over the period, over the years. And like he's rightly said, there are people who don't know and they award wrong computations and wrong values. So you would want to go to someone who has tried the road, has tested, knows where the potholes are to avoid them, and all
Exactly.
of that. So again, as employers, for those who are employers and business owners, like we have established, as to whether you have bought a group life policy or not, workmen's compensation will catch you if you have an employee who gets injured on the job. So it will do you well to look into that. I mean, if even if you're a small company, I mean, your policies are not cast in stone, right? They can always be
Oh yeah.
amended according to the strength
Exactly.
of the company.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just so it has you covered, So this would be a fantastic thing to consider. Michael, could you please mention your number one more time, or probably, yeah, you could mention your number again
Okay.
for those who may have missed, so that they can write it down. Maybe mention it slowly this time, and then your name.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sure. So, 0249 621 535 0249 621 535. So the name is Michael Jose Dixon, head group life health and pension. So I believe the next time we'll do a lot more about health too, which is also one area I know HR practitioners have a lot of problems with. So one day,
Right.
if you have me again, I come back again and explain how the health insurance space is, and then try and
Okay.
demystify some of the issues we have with health insurance for employees as well.
Right. But since you've mentioned, that will be my last before we go. Since you've mentioned health, I think one of the misunderstandings rather is that group life is the same as health insurance. They're totally different,
Totally different. Totally different. Totally
right?
different. They are
And,
totally
and,
different. So yeah.
and workmen's compensation, it is only employers who can buy group policies like that. And of course, if you're an individual business, we have buying group life. So it's employers who subscribe to those kind of
Yes,
insurance,
for their
right?
employees. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. All right. So thank you again so much. Thank you for all of you who joined: Sydney, Joseph, Elizabeth, Zachary. Who else? I hope I'm not missing anybody. Did I mention Sydney? There's Sophia, Salifu. All of you. Thank you so much. Ebenezer, Brempong, Oswald from Tema. Who else? Charles Loco. Thank all of you for joining. And before I sign out, um, let's the HR so that HR conference, like I mentioned earlier, is happening on the 26th of September. Please, especially for our Kumasi people, please, you cannot afford to miss it. The details are scrolling on the screen as I speak. Please take note of the numbers and call and book your slot. It's 26th of September at the Maitland Hotel in Kumasi. You do not want to miss it. So please make a date with us. And then we have our magazine, which is also free. You can access it free of charge. We only appeal that for those of us in our various workplaces, do encourage either your marketing department, your communications, your PR, whoever is in charge of making advertising decisions, encourage them to come and buy a slot in our magazine, because that's how we are able to fund the free magazine. So encourage as many companies as possible to come in and partner with us and buy slots in our magazine for advertisement. And then the last item is our training on employment terminations. And again, it would be advertising that as well. And so please do make a date, make sure you take note of the details, and then also subscribe and then make a date with us. It's coming on the 14th of September, and please make sure you book a date, and registration payment confirms your registration. So we have just 13 days to go. So please rush whilst there are seats available. Thank you again so much for your time. Thank you, Michael. It's been a wonderful session, and we're looking forward to a follow up where we can discuss more
Mhm.
about these things. And yes, the links for the magazine are in the chat box for the Facebook and the YouTube chat boxes. Please catch it before we can go off. Thank you, and let's all have a fantastic week and meet again next week for another enlightening episode of the Sidat HR Digest. All right, then. Bye bye.
All right, sure. Bye.